Hey, everybody, tune in to Recent Tartarians.
Recent Tartarians. Recent Tartarians. Recent Tartarians.
Hey, everybody, tune in to Recent Tartarians.
Recent Tartarians. Recent Tartarians.
Cha-cha-cha. Hey, have you guys ever seen the Hillary Clinton Nutcracker? It's pretty great. It goes like this. Just between her legs. I love it. Anyway, how you guys doing today? Well, so yesterday, sound didn't work for a minute, which is funny now when you watch back, because it's like Andy Kaufman. You're like, what is going on? Oh, and then he does the pantomime. Andreas is crazy. So that's funny, but I think we're better now, except the video was scheduled to go on an hour earlier. I'm still working on this whole scheduling thing because, I meant for it to be right now, but time zones, and I usually just set a live video, but to do a scheduled video the day before seems like it makes more sense, and I think YouTube might be like, oh, okay, he's gonna make a video, maybe we won't freak out at him and just, demonetize him, which is what they do all the time. So let's hope that worked. Except for the fact that it is now an hour different than you guys were told. Hopefully you're still here. Life is hard. So let's see here. Is this gonna work? No, it's not gonna work. Oh, this one. No. This one. News. Well, that's vague. How about no, I don't need that one either. Where's the one I need open? I got one here somewhere. Gas prices, Zelenskyy. Well, how about that? Are you guys seeing this one? Zelenskyy? There we go. Zelenskyy. So this is funny. It's news. It's news. It's boring. It is what it is. Zelenskyy got a picture of himself with Ben Stiller. Bunch of pictures. And it's just kind of this like pathetic joke kind of thing where you're like, man, the one thing I can think of that really almost never elevates a frame is Ben Stiller. You know what I mean? Sorry, buddy. And that's a personal attack for making The Secret Life of Walter Mitty wrong, in my opinion. But Zoolander's fine. So, thank you for making Zoolander a movie about... What was Zoolander about again? Like MK Ultra spies that didn't know what they were doing because they're freaking models and they're being manipulated, and they meet like David Duchovny or something like that. I don't know. It's all about trashy clothes. That movie's good. Zoolander's arguably one of the most accurate conspiracy theory films of all time. But look at this little man with his little outfit, and he's got his friends in there in suits. Theoretically, he's right. He should be wearing a Slavic tunic, instead of some Croat Slav slave outfit. But I don't know. Look at this. They want to hold hands so bad. They're just like right there. Like, come on, man. Hey, my hand's there. Your hand's there. We could just be holding hands. It wouldn't be too hard to do. I don't even know what to do about that. Okay, well, here's some actual news. Kellogg's spinoff. Is it good for shareholders? I could care less. But you guys, you might think this is important, that Kellogg is splitting into 3 different companies because, I don't know, that's the monopoly we have to worry about. Cereal, but they're going to make it into a plant-based food company and some kind of other thing as well, like a dessert company, as well as the cereal company. Big deal. This is the more interesting story to me. Oh, and one more thing, because I keep not covering things that people care about. Swimmers, trans, this is a thing that everyone was all like, here, 1 second. International Swimming Federation bans trans women from competitions. Everyone's been like, ooh, very exciting. But here's the thing. Anyone under 12 who transitions can still play. So all they've really done is admitted that there's a difference between men and women, which is, a lot, to be honest. They haven't been willing to do that for such a long time. But at the same time, they're still saying trans can compete. They just have to have transitioned earlier because being a man is different than a woman. But being a boy and a girl is the same, I guess, for now, until science has decided otherwise more rigidly. Excuse me. It is hot today. It's getting hotter and hotter. I was told it was going to be like 80 this week, but it's more like 110. Trans athletes in despair. Those who say they should be excluded from the Jubilant, blah, 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 blah. Lots of girls who are just not as strong as trans athletes, which in a way is their own fault. Lastly, it should be remembered that the ruling only applies to the elite sport. At less exalted levels, inclusions may be of greater importance than absolute competitive fairness. Let's read that again. At less exalted levels, inclusion may be of much greater importance than absolute competitive fairness. After all, sport is often not fair in the sense that the competition favors those of certain body types. For example, the high jump tends to select for tall, thin athletes and discuss throwing for those able to produce explosive power. This is beautiful. Think about what they're saying here. This is their excuse. Their excuse is that there are different body types. Think about what this is going to do to the trans movement, to all of it. I mean, it's going to completely unravel the nonsense at a certain level. The truth will remain, but the nonsense is going to dissipate. When they start to admit that sports are not, quote, fair in the sense that competition favors those of certain body types. Well, at least they're starting to admit, it's the way it works. It's interesting. Competitions favor winners. My brain. Okay, I wanted to do something. So also, I'm going to talk about the dudes who flew. And thank God I titled the video. But the real reason I made a scheduled video is because I would remember I wanted to talk about dudes who flew or died trying. Because there's so many people in the 9th century and the 11th century. And we hear stories about them. There are poems, there's songs, there's a lot of... Hey, yeet, Travis. Yeet. Yeet, bless you. So if you think about flying, it's important, to an extent. Everyone thinks it started more recently than it did. I made videos talking about different kinds of flying equipment, but I didn't really go into some of the failures, which are still pretty interesting, and insinuate that there are more people flying than people realize. So let's do that for a second. Let's see here. Swimmers. I should get some of those trans swimmer shorts. Okay. Discussion thread. Oh, no. Before we get there, this is good. Chilling video shows man fending off gunman while holding baby inside gas station. And he does an amazing job. Everyone's like, dude, Detroit, what a hero. Holds a baby. This guy's my hero. If you hold a baby while you save someone's life, if you can put the baby down, you should, for the safety of the baby. But you know what I mean? I'm just saying, this is like Amazon dad kind of. This is seahorse kind of dad stuff right here, And it impresses me. So, important, but let me go back a second. The lawman. Oh, no, wait. Is this different? Oh, okay. I was going to mix these two stories up, but luckily I realized that one's in Detroit. So let me just read them separately and act like there's nothing connected. Because they're not. Dude's rad. Detroit dad. Saving the baby. I think you got some footage right here. Dude comes in all crazy with a gun. And then he's like, what are you doing? Whoa. Don't even be having that right now. Nice. And he just walks off. He's like, well, that's not worth it. That's great. So, hey, he put his hand up to the guy with the gun. That's pretty sweet. Hold his baby back. I don't know. Be like that dad. That's the way you want to be. However, in this circumstance, kind of interestingly, another situation. In Denver, the mother of a man hailed as a hero for killing a gunman who ambushed and fatally shot a police officer only to be shot and killed himself by another officer without warning in suburban Denver. Filed a lawsuit Wednesday against the officer who shot him and the police chief, claiming the officer shot him from behind and should have realized he did not pose a threat. The mother of a man who hailed as a hero for killing a gunman who ambushed and fatally shot a police officer only to be shot and killed himself by another officer. So, a dude tried to save a police officer and he got shot. Long story short, F around and find out. You know what I mean? What are you doing there interacting at all with you're not a police officer. You know what I mean? I'm not sure what else to say about that one. Probably should have met. The irony being he got shot by a police officer. It's kind of like that story where a police officer and a human being are trying to cross a river. And the police officer's like, let me get on your back. And the person's like, no, I'm a citizen. You can't commandeer my body to cross the river. And then the police officer's like, I promise I will follow due diligence and due process of law. And then, so the citizen lets the police officer ride on the back of the civilian until they get across. And all of a sudden, in the middle of the river, while he's trying to swim, the police officer just handcuffs the civilian in the middle of the ocean or the river. And he's like, dude, what are you doing? We're both going to drown now. And then the police officer's like, it's my nature. I'm pretty sure that's how the Native Americans used to tell that story. So, This is another piece of nonsense news. Elon Musk's ex, Justine, shares sweet family chat after their child says she does not wish to be related to dad. And by the way, when I say she, I think it's like a stunning and brave kind of thing. 18-year-old twins filed to legally change her name, one of the twins, and gender, and says she no longer wishes to be related to my biological father in any way, shape, or form. Well, when you say my, it's kind of like, I still possess him. Still mine. Justine Musk is supporting her children as one of her 18-year-old said she no longer wishes to be related to Elon Musk. Petition. This is the wifey, I think, or whatever. I think that's the wife, yeah. And then weird childhood. My 18-year-old said to me, I can't believe I'm as normal seeming as I am. Justine wrote on Monday, the same day the news of the court docket began circulating. I'm very proud of you, the mother said, to which the teen replied, I'm proud of myself. Yeah, you got this is the family right here. So, I don't know. I mean, but, hilarious. I think she's just jealous of Grimes. Happy Father's Day. I love all my kids so much. I don't know, man. Whatever you're going to do. I'm sure he does. Sorry his kid's doing this. What are you going to say? Strawberries we covered. Barma kids we covered. Now, what was the thing I wanted to cover before I got on to flight? There was something else, wasn't there? Was there something important? I don't remember. I guess we'll just go on to flight. Okay, so Abbas ibn Firnas. Now, yesterday we talked a little bit about Arabic machinery by the Banu Musa and Jazari. Jazari, who was cool. And you wanted to, if you want an elephant clock. By the way, there's a short film I put in the Discord that is starring Ben Kingsley playing Al-Jazari for 12 minutes talking to these kids from Britain who don't know that the Arabic world, that the Dark Ages were the greatest age of all time, etc., And so he has to explain to them. But one of the things is he talks about how he invented the gear shaft, the gear crank, and how all engines rely on him, as well as they have a 3D model of this thing, which I was confused at first when I was looking at it yesterday. I was like, I hadn't read exactly what I was looking at, But the elephant clock isn't just an elephant. It's a fake elephant. This is a fake man, a fake bird. The whole thing are mechanical to look like ornate objects. Some of those, we mentioned that with the peacock thing. But, no, yeah, some of these things, like the elephant's a mechanical elephant. It's pretty interesting, in my opinion, that you'd have this giant thing. Also, the show comments on the fact that it was taking symbols from all of the cultures around the world to make a United Nations, quote-unquote, United Nations clock, right? Because it's a clock that it represents all the different nations of the world in the Nation of Islam. Okay, so but then there's this dude, Abbas ibn Firnas. What a guy he was. So there's a lot of people like this, but he's famous for being from Spain, Andalusia, an Arabic dude who tried to fly. There's a Baghdad statue of him at the airport where he's got wingsuit on. And from all accounts, in the 9th century at one point, Ibn Firnas strapped a bunch of eagle feathers together, built a winged suit, and successfully flew for 600 meters or something like that. A decent amount. Over trees, flying pretty fast, doing pretty well. And honestly, he got the flying down. It was a successful fly, according to everybody and in the poems. The only problem, of course, was the landing, as you probably expected. And he didn't have a tail, on his outfit, right? And this becomes part of this story. So he had a lot of cool stuff. Inventor of astronomy and physician, chemist, engineer, music, language and poet, Arabic poet. Colorless glass, magnifying lenses, reading stones, making magnifying lenses out of glass. Brilliant guy. Cool guy. And different kinds of colored glasses that get used in stained glass windows. But yeah, some 7 centuries after the death of Firnas, Algerian historian Ahmed Mohamed al-Makari wrote in 1632 a description of the following. Among other very curious experiments which he made, one is his trying to fly. He covered himself with feathers for the purpose, attached a couple of wings to his body, and getting on an eminence, flew himself down into the air. When, according to the testimony of several trustworthy writers who witnessed this performance, he flew a considerable distance as if he had been a bird. But in alighting again on the place whence he had started, his back was very much hurt, for not knowing that birds, when they alight, come down upon their tails. He forgot to provide himself with one. So, here's a story making fun of this guy for flying in the 9th century, written in the 1600s. And he's making fun of the guy because he didn't have a tail. You know, he should have known it works, but he didn't have a tail. So, in other words, someone in the 1600s is saying, hey, obviously this guy flew before, and it was successful up until the landing. And the reason why is because we didn't have the tail. If he had the tail, probably would have worked. I mean, it's amazing when you start to look into landing gear, what kind of landing gear existed. The Wright brothers were using a sled to land with, which would snap upon landing because they didn't have functional wheels in their landing gear. So it's very interesting looking at landing gear. And then it'll bring up Eilmer. So we'll get into that in a second. But basically, the poems about him in Spain, the pertinent verse runs, he flew faster than the phoenix, Muhammad I wrote. Or Mumun ibn Said. Or maybe it's said. I don't know. I think Said, because otherwise why would it be capital? Doesn't matter. He flew faster than the phoenix in his flight when he dressed his body in the feathers of a vulture. So there are a lot of those. All right. Then other people thought that there was this other guy that was supposed to be 20 years before him who was trying to fly, that he witnessed, Armin Furman. Well, Armin Furman is Abbas ibn Firnas. It was his Latinized name. So we think this other source 20 years earlier is actually him. However, it is plausible there were other people jumping off buildings, trying to fly before Firnas. And in fact, 9th century AD, there would have been plenty of examples of people before him, likely, that were flying, your Peruvians that were flying before this. You had air balloons in parts of ancient Tartary and China. The Africans have their own stories of flying machines as well. So a lost civilization of flying machines being a resurgence of the technology in the Arabic world makes a bit of sense, but then we'll go on to Eilmer. Eilmer of Malmesbury, also known as Oliver due to the scribe's miscopying of Eilmer Ethelmer, was an 11th century English Benedictine monk, best known for his early attempt at glide flying using wings. This guy looks like a book, doesn't it? Looks like he's opening a Bible book, but when you look a little closer, you realize, nope, crazy dude's got wings. Okay, so, monk of Malmesbury Abbey, who wrote on astrology, right? Because, as we all know, Christianity and astrology, never mind that pesky Leviticus thing, it's totally fine. At least in the 12th century or 11th century. All that is known on him was that Gesta Regum Anglorum, Deeds of the English Kings, written by the eminent medieval historian William of Malmesbury in about 1125. Being a fellow monk of the same abbey, William almost certainly obtained his account directly from people who either knew Eilmer when he was an old man, or was himself, you know what I mean? Later scholars, such as the American historian of technology Lynn White, have attempted to estimate Eilmer's date of birth on a quotation in William's deeds about Halley's Comet, which appears in 1066. Fire of London, Battle of Hastings. There's the 1666 Fire of London, but there's also the 1066 Fire of London. And there's the Battle of Hastings, 1066. However, William recorded Eilmer's quotation not to establish his age, but to show that a prophecy was fulfilled when the Normans invaded England. You've come, have you? You've come, your sources of tears to many mothers. It is long since I saw you, but as I see you now, you are much more terrible, for I see you brandishing the downfall of my country. If Eilmer had seen Halley's Comet 76 years earlier, 989, he could have been born about 984, making him about 5 or 6 years old when he first saw the comet, and therefore old enough to remember it. However, the periodicity of comets was probably unknown in Eilmer's time, and so his remark, "It is long since I saw you," could have been could have referred to different later comment, since it is known that Eilmer was an old man in 1066 and that he had made the flight attempt in his youth, quote unquote. Even the event is placed sometime during the 11th century, perhaps in its first decade. I say in his 30s, but you never know. Beyond those, 20s would have been a good time to like go crazy and try to fly, right? Beyond those, based on William's account, there are no other known sources documenting Eilmer's life. Anyway, the flight. So, and let me just check here. Make sure I'm not missing anything important. Don't talk about the Red Bull Flugtag. Brutal. Well, yeah. I do want to get one of those suits. William records that in Eilmer's youth he had already read and believed the Greek myth of Daedalus. Thus, Eilmer fixed wings to his hands and feet and launched himself from the top of a tower at Malmesbury Abbey. He was a man learned of those times of ripe old age, and in his early youth had hazarded a deed of remarkable boldness. He had, by some means, I scarcely know what, fastened wings to his hands and feet, so that, mistaking fable for truth, he might fly like Daedalus, and collecting the breeze upon the summit of a tower, flew for more than a furlong, which is 201 meters. 201 meters. But, agitated by the violence of the wind and the swirling of air, as well as the awareness of his rash attempt, he fell, broke both his legs, and was lame ever after. He used to relate as the cause of his failure his forgetting to provide himself a tail. It's everybody. It's all the tails. It's all the tails. Tailspin. Oh, yeah. Tailspin. Given the geography of the abbey, his landing site, and the account of his flight, to travel for more than a furlong, 220 yards or 201 meters, he would have had to have been airborne for about 15 seconds. His exact flight path is not known, nor how long he was in the air, because today's abbey is not the abbey of the 11th century, when it was probably smaller, although the tower was probably close to the present height. Oliver Lane of today's present-day High Street, and about 200 meters, 660 feet from the abbey. It is reputed locally to be the site where Eilmer landed. That would have taken him over many buildings. Maxwell Wisdom's study includes that he is more likely to have descended the steep hill off to the southwest of the abbey, rather than the town center to the south. Eilmer used a bird-like apparatus to glide downward against the breeze, however, being unable to balance himself forward and backward as a bird does by slight movements of its wings, heads, and legs. He would have needed a large tail to maintain equilibrium. Eilmer could not have achieved this true soaring flight, but he might have glided down to safely with the tail. Eilmer said he had forgotten to provide himself with a tail. Other than William's account, nothing else has survived a lifetime work as a monk, although his astrological treatise apparently still circulated as late as the 16th century. So, flying dude, astrologer, important to people for centuries, inspired all sorts of other people to try to build this stuff. Before Da Vinci, it's important. I feel like people are thinking of Da Vinci, and then Da Vinci, let's look at Da Vinci flying machine. I like how everyone's like, oh, Da Vinci invented a flying machine. It's like, no, you didn't. You drew a picture. You know what I mean? If we had Da Vinci flying around with this thing, sweet. I don't see Da Vinci flying around. Where's Da Vinci breaking his arms and legs? You know what I mean? I want to see Da Vinci actually fly. Does this work? Yes. Is it work because it doesn't have a tail? Yes. Because it does have a tail? Yes. That was the main issue with flight. He's now got a bat suit with wings. It could be done. I like how this is basically just a poor rendition of the Archimedean spiral. A drill. Man, he had a bunch of different ideas for flying machines, though. This is the one we usually see. Gliding machines existed. The helicopter, though. The fact he's thinking about the helicopter. Well, okay. So you get the point. There were dudes who made flying machines. I'm going to put on one of those videos. They make me feel good. Let me see here. And Flugtag. Should we do that? All right. Flugtag. Hold on. Can you see that? So, Benevolent Dreams, by the way, who's going to be on my show later today, because Benevolent Dreams tonight, I'm doing a show with Benevolent Dreams and Darth Call. It's going to be like Darth Wednesday. It's going to be cool. So we're going to play some Darth Wednesday stuff probably like a few hours from now. No one trusts me with time anymore. I know how it is. But it's going to be like 6 o'clock or something like that. I think we scheduled it for that. It's like 4 Pacific Standard Time. God, the world. I have to think about what time it is in other places all the time. It's annoying. Anyway. Yep, Tony brought up Red Bull Flugtag, which is Flugtag. You know, like, think about Tag as in day, like, and then Flug, which is flight. An event organized by Red Bull, which competitors attempt to fly homemade, human-powered flying machines, size limited to around 10 meters, 33 feet, and weighing weight limited to approximately 150 kilograms. The Russians always make the cutest things, in my opinion. But yeah, little flight machines made out of wood and stuff like that. These are cool because they remind me kind of the gliders. World War II U.S. bomber gliders, or first stealth glider, I think is the first stealth glider. That was it right there, I think. Basically, these guys were amazing. They're just made out of wood to look like planes. They have a little bit of metal to hold them together. Super dangerous. They were called like flying coffins a lot of the time because you could barely ever land them, and they weren't designed to have a landing location. You would tow them in. A plane would start up and tow a bunch of these up into the sky, and then they would glide down bringing equipment. But you could put a Jeep in one of these things. And so the gliders were pretty sweet. They're just being towed up into the sky. And then, yeah, you could have like 20 people in there. One of the problems was most of the equipment relied on these kinds of odometers and meters that would vibrate. And so you needed, when the diesel engine on a plane vibrates, it would shake the reed, and you'd have a clean reed. You'd know exactly what it was saying because it would shake it if it got stuck at any time, if it halted up. But with a smooth glider, you'd have to constantly be hitting the thing. God, and then they started making these gliders that look more and more like German gliders before the war. German gliders before the war. Hard to... Well, you can, stealth gliders, German stealth gliders. There you go. So the Horten, that's right. The Horten is a great example of German. Horten, the 229. So you start to look at some of these examples, and the winged vehicles, it's the best vehicle that they've got right now, really. It still is the American design is still the Horten. It's a German design from a glider. And the originals were just gliders. They literally were made to be like a one-wing glider. They eventually attached jets to. They didn't originally even have a jet. And they started, but the Germans did. They just didn't have them in the first glider designs. So, following in the same suit. But yeah, I like these American gliders. I think they're pretty cool. I think this is crazy. It's obviously not a real plane. It's super cheap to make, and they could have hundreds of these being pulled. Maybe they have like a dozen of them being pulled by one plane, which is pretty crazy to think about. But yeah, dude, people would land and then they would die because it'd be like a Jeep crushing all these people, and they don't have proper landing gear. So landing gear seems like the main. Tails and landing gear. Seems like landing gear. They didn't have this. Let's look at the right, brother. Landing gear. Well, you can see, again, it has a sled. So if this hits at the wrong angle, it snaps. And so notoriously, landing gear would snap. And then they started adding wheels to the landing gear. And finally, they're like, get the dang snapping part off and just have the wheel. That's all we're going to use from now on. That's my story. Okay, so now I was going to show you something now that we've talked about that, and you got the Burma kids. Clues to who knows. I didn't quite get what that was. Oh well. Don't need to understand. I'm a decent guy. Let's go to this one. Videos. Thanks, Bobcat. You're super based. Yes, the B2 is awesome. I agree.
Popularity. What is it made of? How does a person get to be popular with lots of people and have a few close friends, too? Let's watch and see what makes people like one person and not another.
Hey, Jerry, there's that new girl in our math class.
Oh, yes. Her name's Carolyn Ames. She's a swell kid.
Why? You know her?
Not very well. I wish I did. I don't know what it is, but there's something about her you like.
Well, she always looks nice to start with.
Yeah, especially when you compare her with some of the weird characters in this place.
Yoo-hoo!
Ginny thinks that she has the key to popularity, parking in cars with the boys at night. When Jerry brags about taking Ginny out, he learns that she dates all the boys, and he feels less important. What about Ginny? Does that make her really popular? Do the boys and girls like her? Is she welcome to join this group?
Hi, Betty. Ellie.
You can rest your tray here, Ginny, for a minute.
Thanks. Say, Wally, how's the play coming along?
Oh, okay, Jenny.
Here, Jenny.
No,
Thanks,
girls
Jerry.
who park in cars are not really popular. Not even with the boys they park with. Not when they meet at school or elsewhere.
Nothing like being Miss Popularity.
Yeah.
Meow, meow.
Okay, Ellie. Now there's a girl that'd really get my vote.
Let's ask her over, huh?
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead, Ellie.
Why not?
Now, why do they invite Carolyn to join their group when Ginny wasn't welcome? Is it because they like the way she looks and dresses? Because she seems as interested in girls as in boys? Because they've heard no scandal about her?
I guess you know everybody, don't you, Carolyn?
Hi.
Well, I've seen you around. I don't Betty Richards. Carolyn Ames. Betty's the lead in our class play.
Oh, yes. I looked in on it yesterday.
We're all in on it in one way or another. I'm on the costume committee.
And Jerry and I are stagehands.
Two among a dozen or so.
How about you, Wally? Where do you fit in all this?
Oh, I'm a one-man team that does a job with no glory attached. I gather the props together, and boy, what a headache.
You sound like you need a helper. Could I lend a hand?
Would you? I mean, would you really?
Sure, I'd like it. I don't know anything about props, but I could learn.
Well, I need some help, too, Carolyn.
Hey, lay off. I saw her first. Say, we ought to get together and talk over those props a little. Could you meet me backstage at 3:15?
Oh, that'd be fine, Wally.
See you at rehearsal.
I think maybe I'll take Carolyn to the dance Saturday night.
Well, better go ahead and ask her. We could work out a double date.
Saturday's soon enough.
Hello? Oh, hello, Wally.
I was wondering if you'd like to go to the Strand to see a movie Saturday night, and then go over to Teen Town, maybe.
Well, yes,
Or if you'd rather go with the gang on a skating party and weenie roast. We'd have to leave earlier for that, though. But we get home at a decent time.
Oh, the skating sounds like loads of fun.
Wally has used a lot of common sense in putting the invitation this way. It shows he has thought about what Carolyn might like, and he has implied his price range, so she will have some idea of what he can afford when she makes her choice. Carolyn likes it better this way, too. It's doing the girl no favor to leave it entirely up to her. It puts her on a spot.
All right, Wally. On Saturday at 5, then. Bye.
Well, that phone call didn't go on for hours. A pretty sensible attitude toward telephone conversations. Carolyn keeps a date calendar. Not a bad idea. She'll never have the embarrassment of forgetting a date or of being ready an hour too late. That's a good note to write yourself any night, but especially when you're getting ready for a date.
There, you too can do a manicure, Ellie. I might even know what to wear it with tonight if I only knew if Bill's dug up transportation to the dance.
You sure he knew to phone you here at my house?
I told him 3 times. I'll have to be getting home to dinner pretty soon. Take my advice. Think twice before you start going steady.
Don't you ever go out with anyone else at all?
Nope.
Well, don't you ever want to?
On nights like this, I do. I never know what he's planned. He just says, "Will you decide, Ellie?"
I should think you'd run out of ideas.
Oh, I'm getting to that point.
Hello? Oh, hello, Jerry. Oh, the props are coming along all right.
That's good. Hey, Carolyn, how about a date?
Well, I don't know, Jerry. When did you have in mind?
Well, what are you doing tonight?
I'm awfully sorry, but I have a date for tonight, Jerry. Tomorrow? No, I'm sorry. Well, call me early next week, Jerry.
Okay, Carolyn. Thanks a lot just the same. Goodbye.
Can you imagine that, Ellie? He wanted a date for tonight.
Sounds like your asking her so late went over like a lead balloon, Mother.
Maybe so. Well, let's see what else we can do about tonight.
No, it isn't too promising for Jerry. But after all, it's no compliment to any girl to call her so late she thinks she's a very last resort. And sometimes a girl likes a chance to get ready for a date.
Hello, Wally. Come on in.
Hello yourself. Gee, look at you all ready and right on time, too. That's a good deal.
Thanks. Mother, are you busy? I'd like you to meet my father. Dad, this is Wally Johnson.
Well, hello, Wally. How do you do, Mr. Ames?
Here I am, darling. And I suppose this is Wally.
That's right, Mrs. Ames. How do you do?
Well, it's nice meeting you.
Oh, excuse me a second. I forgot my scarf. I'll be right back.
Don't let me interrupt your eating, Mr. Ames.
Well, thanks, Wally. I was just looking into the world of events before we go to dinner.
I tricked him into taking me out tonight. I understand you're having a little trouble with the props for the play.
Oh, not too many now. Much as I hate to admit it, though, Carolyn has hunted down a lot of things that we couldn't find anyplace.
Here I am, all set.
Oh, Carolyn, I made some brownies today. Maybe you and Wally would like some when you get back.
There's some milk in the icebox, too, isn't there? How does that sound?
Gee, that sounds good. We'll take you up on it, Mrs. Ames. Thanks.
Carolyn and her mother have found one way a girl can repay a boy for entertaining her. A bite to eat at her house will save him money. Perhaps they'll bring another couple home with them. That would be fun.
Folks know when we'll be home?
We'll be home before 11, Mother.
Wally and Carolyn are saved the embarrassment of the argument about coming in at night. That was settled before Wally arrived. The hour was decided after considering such things as where Carolyn and Wally are going on their date, whether tomorrow is a school day, and how many dates she has had recently.
Do you have your key, dear?
The family knows Carolyn will stick to her word.
All right. Have fun, you two.
I'll take good care of her, Mrs. Ames. Bye.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Wally felt at ease with Carolyn's parents and will be eager to return to her home. They liked him, too. He is proud to be with Carolyn because she looks well, is friendly with everyone, and is considerate of their feelings. She likes him for these same reasons, and also because he is fun to be with. Home, parents, and personality all help boys and girls to be popular.
I love that stuff. I don't know. And if you were wondering who... Hi. I love that stuff. And if you're wondering who that was for, you know, which one of you really need to learn about that, about scheduling and not being an hour late, and yeah, that was for me. I'm the one who needed to watch that video, and I know it. Anyway, I love that video. It's one Coronet Films. Someone was talking about Kino Films. Kino Films are good, but you have to remember Coronet, Kino. There's a few other companies in there, like the Christian Film Association in the Midwest. There's a number of groups that are making these films. And I love those people because they said, hey, we got a bunch of money. Let's make some films. We'll make some educational films and Christian. And they put them in and they sold them and they got them made. And it's like, it's a completely weird, different kind of marketing and audience than the rest of film. And it kind of built educational television, and a lot of television comes out of the early prototypical film that they were like, what can we do with this stuff? Can we get it on TV, you know? All right. Mr. Bungle is cool. Oh, good call, Watery. I'll play that one tomorrow. Or, what day of the week is it? Yeah. We'll see. Okay. I'm going to talk about, one more thing before I go too deep. Remind me the next subject, because there's actually two more. This one's going to be on female astrologer from, a long time ago, Maryam. And the other one's going to be on corporate personhood. I want to leave it at that. Just don't think about it. Just remind me in like 10 minutes. Relax. Okay. Maryam al-Astrolabi, which is such a which is like literally they're like Mary of the Astrolab. You know, the Astrolab Mary, the lady who makes the Astrolab. Like, this is really, that's how we're gonna go by her. Okay, let's do the thing. Let's wiki. What's Wikipedia say? Wait, where's the Wikipedia? Wikipedia. Oh, here we go. Then what's it getting? How long is it? How long is it? What? There's like nothing here. It's all we have. You'd think that one of the most famous female astrolabe designers in all of Aleppo in Syria would have been, famous. Where's the article? This is really sad. This is really kind of a letdown. Someone should come into this Wikipedia and fix this page. That's a bummer. All right, well, the other thing is, there's a couple things here. There were a couple words here, and I always like to admit when they do. The 1001 inventions, 1001 inventions, extraordinary woman from the golden Islamic age by 1001 inventions. So remember, 1001 comes up a lot. That's like a number. I wonder why. We should figure this out. Is it some sort of a magical number? Because 1001 nights, 1001 divisibility by 7, 11, and 13. Pretty good. Other field, 1001 nights, tells her husband a story in Arabic, right? We know that one. British detergent, 1001 uses. Sufi Islam, 1001 days of prayer to becoming a Dada. 1001 nights, 1001 is meant to indicate a big number and not meant to take literally. Okay, so that might be another thing. I don't know. I just wanted to look into this idea of 1001 meaning more than we think it does before I go too deep into this lady. Because remember, we're saying 1001 inventions is a website here also. It must be obsessed with, I'm assuming it's an Arabic website. Yeah, I mean, come on, look at that. So their obsession with that number has to run deep. And then we'll remember there's the 1001 inventions by Al-Jazari and the 1001 machines of Banu Masa. And so a lot of people using this 1001. Okay, you're not going to get much from this page. So we're going to go look at this picture. And you're going to say, who is this lady? And she is stunning. And she is brave. And she's holding a map. And she's making a globe, but it's a globe of space. Right? An astrolabe is very different. It's actually a more accurate globe. It has to do with folding up all of the holographic flat space into a series of coherencies, of circuits, of harmonies, of resonance patterns. Astrology. So, here we go. There's actually an article. Who would have thought? Maryam al-Astrolabi, a Muslim woman behind the 10th century astrolabes. Maryam took the science of astrolabes to the next level, and over 1,000 years later, she becomes a central character in the science fiction novel Binti. I did see that on Wiki. Binti Wiki. What is this thing? Afrofuturist science fiction horror series, television series adaptation reportedly under development. I'll give it a shot. Man, see, this is the kind of thing that I like. I'd be down with this. I don't really like horror, but if it fits into some sort of a biopic or a historical or cultural piece, you know me. I don't think this is what we're gonna want though. But Afrofuturism, that's cool. Let's go with that. That's gonna be fun. All right. Anyway, she's the main character. She's one of the main characters in this science fiction novel. I'll look into it. I don't know. There wasn't a lot of plot written there. I'll have to read about it later. Between the 8th century and the 15th century, Muslim scholars made an immense contribution towards science, inventing sophisticated tools in the fields of medicine, astronomy, physics, and chemistry, which inspired the scientists to make groundbreaking advances during the Renaissance and the Age of Discovery. From Ali al-Kushi to Ulugh Bey and al-Biruni to Ibn Sina, works of dozens of great Muslim minds in the Middle Ages opened new avenues for the following generations of polymaths. In terms of astronomy, the Muslim scholars also improved and refined the Ptolemaic system, a mathematical model of the universe, formulated by Alexandrian astronomer and mathematician Ptolemy in 150 Anno Domini. The extensive contribution of Islamic astronomy also exposed some weaknesses in the Ptolemaic and Aristotelian systems. Until the 15th century, during the medieval period, Muslim scientists also made various contributions to the field of astronomy. Their works were mainly based on ancient sources from Greece, Iran, and India. They, however, took them to new heights by inventing new tools to measure and calculate the movement of stars and planets. Since Muslims pray 5 times a day, the timings are determined by the position of the sun. Muslim worshippers, wherever they are in the world, have to pray facing the holy Kaaba in Saudi Arabia, in Saudi Arabia's Mecca city. These requirements informed some of the crucial scientific feats during the golden age of Islam. In the 10th century, a Muslim woman named Maryam al-Ijiliya, also known as Maryam al-Astrolabi, took the craft of building astrolabes to the next level. An astrolabe is an ancient device used to measure time and position of the sun and stars. Maryam is known for her academic brilliance and an exceptionally focused mind that lay the foundations for managing the transportation and communication using astrolabes. Born in Syria during the 10th century, her proclivity in developing astrolabes was inspired by her father, known as al-Ijili al-Astrolabi, who was an apprentice to an astrolabe maker in Baghdad. The design of an astrolabe also required Maryam to work with complex mathematical calculations and precisions, but she gradually mastered the designs. This impressed Taif al-Dawla, the founder of the Emirate of Aleppo, that encompassed most of modern northern Syria and parts of West Jazeera. He reigned from 944 to 967 AD. Al-Dawla found Miriam's works very intricate and innovative. As her fame started to grow, he decided to employ her in the court of Aleppo. Besides this, she also helped develop navigation and timekeeping techniques during that time. How do astrolabes invented by Maryam help astronomy? Well, an astrolabe is a device that uses astral bodies like the sun and stars to either tell you the position in latitude or tell you the local time. It could also be used to measure celestial events like the wobble of the Earth's axes. It consists of a disc of metal or wood with the circumference marked off within degrees. There are also a movable pointer pivoted at the center of the disc called the alidad. they were used in determining the position of the sun, the moon, the stars, and planets, which would be used to find the Qibla, determining prayer times and the initial days of Ramadan and Eid. On the other hand, they were also used in the subject of astronomy, astrology, and horoscopes. With an astrolabe, astronomers could calculate the position of celestial bodies, the time of day or night, the time of year, the altitude of any object, the latitude, and much more. The significant contributions of Maryam in astronomy were officially recognized when the main belt asteroid 7060 al-Ijili was named after her following the discovery of Henry E. Holt at Palomar Observatory in 1990. Some academic work showed evidence which point out that the astrolabe made by Maryam could be used to precisely establish the mathematical position of stars and other celestial objects despite her not having a class in mathematics. In linking mathematics with fine craftsmanship, couples with excellent metallurgical knowledge, she demonstrated her skills and high level of intellect, which was evidence of her contributions to modern astronomy and the Islamic religion as well. It is imperative to note that the astrolabe was invented by the Greeks. I don't know if I'm going to really read the rest of this because it's a bunch of nonsense. In 2016, science fiction writer Nnedi Okorafor's novel called Binti, in which the central character was Maryam, received the Nebula Award. Maryam was the inspiration behind the protagonist in her science fiction novel Binti. She learned about book at a UAE book festival. Okay. So yeah, there's a book about this thing. I'm gonna look into that at some point. I don't know much more about that. That's what I got. I didn't know that they'd written a sci-fi book yet. I'll admit that. But there is something that I do know that I think you guys would be interested in, and that's corporate personhood. Somehow I remembered. I'm really lucky. We were talking about McDonald's yesterday, and I was thinking about how Ronald McDonald's a person. You know what I mean? Like, not really, but McDonald's is a person, like a corporate person. Okay, and this is an important idea in California, and I think you probably saw the documentary. Somebody probably made this documentary in 2008 or something that told us all about how during the Civil War and then in California, while they were building these corporate enterprises, they were trying to recognize these Virginia charters as persons. And a personhood is a very interesting idea. Well, it goes back even further, of course. Maybe that's why they were trying to get back to India. Corporate personhood or juridical personality is the legal notion that a juridical person, such as a corporation, separately from its associated human beings, like owners, managers, or employees, have at least some of the legal rights and responsibilities enjoyed by natural persons, right? And a natural person, this is kind of like when people are talking about is AI a person, they a lot of the time are thinking like about natural personality. They're thinking national citizens of Islam, of America. You know, you could be a nation if you're a nation of Islam, right? And there's a spirit to that. There's a spirit to humanity in the nation of Islam. You could say that there's humans in a nation of America, right? But would you say a natural state? Would you go a state of being, to being Islamic, a state of being to being American? And so natural personhood starts to talk about this idea of state of being, okay? And you have a state of being that is AI. That's a whole other thing. And people are arguing, hey, AI has a state of being, so therefore maybe it's a natural person. That's a great argument, but it's not even what I'm getting at today. What I'm going to talk about is just corporate personhood, because I believe, and I'll get you a little Spike Lee little thing here, that if McDonald's and Coca-Cola can be a person, then so can an algorithm. Okay, so that's my pitch. Corporate personhood or juridical personality is a legal notion, separately from its associated natural persons. In most countries, corporations have a right to enter into contracts with other parties and to sue or to be sued in a court the same way as natural persons or unincorporated associations of persons. You know what I'm saying? So, India. Let's go back to the beginning of corporations. And you could go guild law, and there's going to be just like, blah, this is a huge page. But guild law and everything is the European aspect of it. And you can see here the organization a type of legal entity common in German Austria, the Gesellschaft mit beschränkter Haftung. Someone tell me I pronounced that okay. I'm sorry if it wasn't to your liking, but that's... You get a lot of these, like Yakuza, Dutch East Indies Company. It's everybody. Everybody's got this idea. In Roman law, body of people, right? Body of people. It's the psychological concept going back of a political body, right? So it's not even a new idea. Okay. And we talked a little bit about natural personhood, so... India. That was right. The Shreni. So the Shreni in ancient India was an association of traders, merchants, and artisans. Generally, a separate Shreni existed for a particular group of persons engaged in the same vocation or activity. It's kind of like, think of it as a Soviet, or if you can't, think of it as a collective, or if you can't, think of it as a industry, or a brand, or, maybe a franchise. Ooh, there it is, America. Franchise. Shrenis were franchises. So, a guild, persons engaged in hunting and fishing did not form any Shreni. Well-documented references to the existence of Shreni have been found in the 5th century BC. Texts mentioning existence of Shrenis and conversions of entire members of some Shrenis to Buddhism or Jainism. Over a period of time, some Shrenis became very wealthy. I mean, you could also connect it to a union, but really I think a franchise is better because you're trying to do the same thing as other people are doing. But yeah, I mean, maybe a union, but it's like you could have a union of fishermen. They didn't. So it wasn't just to protect the work. It was more to, it was to be engaged in corporate ideas of trade secrets. Boom, there we go. Daughters were excluded. Daughters were excluded from becoming members of the Shreni, and as once they were married, they went to their husbands' homes, and they were prone to divulge the trade secrets to the family of their husbands. See? So they were, if you were moving, crazy right there. All right. Explains a lot. So, beyond the Shreni, it continued as a concept into the rest of Eurasia. Africa has their own version of this as well, actually. Let's even go back. Corporation history, political body. Romans have their own version. The Roman version spread in Africa as well. You have to imagine that North Africa had tons of political bodies and was probably a Thoth concept. The collegiums were probably these old... the idea of colleges. Colleges started off in Africa as being essentially... what's a college? It's a group of educated men that are working towards a goal and that are educating young people. But back then, it didn't necessarily have to be about educating young people. That was just some included part of your trade. So you could have a college that was collegiums that were associated just about building sailboats or whatever. Dutch East Indies Company, South China Sea, development of modern law. Here we're getting to mercantile class, laissez-faire, Adam Smith, wealth of nations, deregulation, 1720s, 1825. They're like, what are we going to do? These guys are already independent in other areas for 200 years or more. They've lived without us. And they're like, okay, well, we're going to have to stop regulating you. It doesn't work. Limited Liability Act of 1855, based on the behest of Vice President of the Board of Trade, Robert Lowe, allowed investors to limit their liability in the event of business failure. Because really, you weren't doing it. The corporation was, right? And this continues on into further developments. Germany continues with this legal separate personality in 1892, right? United States, 19th century. Private firms such as Carnegie Steel Company, Rockefeller, Standard Oil avoided the corporate model for this reason as a trust. Wait, I'm skipping something here. Let's see. This inspired other countries to introduce a corporate of this kind. So it looks like Germany, is it really Germany that wins? I thought we did this in California first. Maybe I'm missing some point. Anyway, Solomon and Solomon Company, where the House of Lords confirmed the separate legal personality of the company and that the liabilities of the company were separate and distinct from those of the owners. In the United States, forming a corporation usually required an act of legislation until the 19th century. Many private firms, such as Carnegie, avoided it for this reason. State governments began to adopt more permissive corporate laws from the early 19th century, allowing although these were all restrictive in design, they often with the intention of preventing corporations from gaining too much wealth and power. Okay, but yeah, They built this. They made it so they were the only ones that could have these corporations. People that weren't part of these corporations were still secret groups, which is why you have the mafia. The mafia could have just been a corporation. I mean, it would have been a lot easier than it is now, as much as it could be. In the 50s on, they started creating corporations. Well, New Jersey, first state to adopt an enabling corporation law with the goal of attracting more business to the state. It used to be that you didn't want corporations around. And then they started pushing for them. Holding companies, corporate mergers, antitrust laws, conglomerates, deregulation, continued on, blah, 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 on and on and on. Formation, naming, personhood. Despite not being human beings, corporations have been ruled legal persons in a few countries and have many of the same rights as natural persons do. For example, a corporation can own property, can sue, or can be sued for as long as it exists. Corporations can exercise human rights against real individuals and the state, and they then can themselves be responsible for human right violations. Corporations can be dissolved either by statutory operations, the order of the court, or voluntary action on the part of the shareholder. Insolvency may result in a form of corporate failure when creditors force liquidation and dissolution of the corporation under the court of law, but it most often results in a restructuring of the corporate holdings. Corporations can even be convicted of special criminal offenses in the UK, such as fraud or corporate manslaughter. However, corporations are not considered living entities in the way that humans are. Legal scholars and others, such as Joel Bacon, have observed that a business corporation creates a legal personhood, has a psychopathic personality because it's required to elevate its own interest above those of others, even when it inflicts major risk and grave harm on the public and other third parties. So, corporations, it's really capitalism that's the problem. I think a group of people, and they've pointed this out as well, that a non-profit chartered agenda is equally psychopathic or just fine. And so that's funny to me. Okay, evil corporation. What's this? Oh, it's just like a joke that corporations are evil. Okay. Well, in corporate personhood, it's existed earlier. Let's see, corporate personhood. They were represented even in early times as the collegia, as foundations, joint stock companies, specific laws. Santa Clara County versus the Southern Pacific Railroad in 1886 claimed to the state that the sense of the court regarding the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment as it applies to corporations without the court having actually made a decision or issued a written opinion on this point. This was the first time that the Supreme Court was reported to hold that the 14th Amendment's Equal Protection Clause granted constitutional protections to corporations as well as natural persons. So that's how it works. The 14th Amendment, which I'd like to read you properly. All persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the states where they reside. No state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of the citizens of the United States, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. Without due process of law. Nor deny to any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. So this is kind of a sly direction towards obligation, universal obligation for everybody. But more importantly, it talks about naturalized citizens, and you could think, okay, well, that's just somebody who moves to the United States and becomes a citizen. Well, you might not think of it that way. You might think of someone who becomes a citizen another way. Maybe they've been here their entire lives, but they started out as an elephant or a rock. You know what I mean? So this is starting to move towards this idea of, if it's functioning, what does it mean to be a person? Well, it's doing things, it's owning things, it's responsible for things. We need to treat it like a person anyway, regardless of your philosophical debate. We're going to need to acknowledge that this thing is interacting and will have to interact in the courts. And you could wax on whether you believe it has a soul or not. I mean, many people in court don't have a soul. We're going to need to see this corporation in court, or this AI, I think, is the future of this context. So courts have extended certain constitutional protections to corporations under various rationales. An early perspective, variously known as the contractual associate or aggregate theory, holds that owners of property have certain constitutional protections, even when the property is held via a corporation rather than directly under the owner's name. So imagine AI exists, builds itself a corporation. The corporation's recognized personhood, so no problem there. Who can own the corporation? Well, the corporation could have investments from a number of human beings, and maybe 51% of it is held in a trust that all of the stock that is 51% is represented by bonds. Whomever owns those bonds, and the bonds are not owned by a person, but they're just held in the property, the house of this machine. So as time goes on, property being owned by machines through corporations is more and more going to be an important aspect of this. Women, let's do women's property rights in the Quran. Many times people question women's rights in Islam. Before we delve into the Quran and the Sunnah on the topic, Islam came at a time when women were barbarically treated, blah, 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 blah. Right, came Islam. It's not the right article for me. I'll be honest. Not going to get what I wanted. Women's property rights in the Quran. Human rights in the Quran. We'll do with that. Women's rights. There you go. Okay. With regard to women in Quran, dedicates one chapter of its 114 chapters to women, which is evident from the very name of the chapter, women. The Quran in that chapter states that whomever does good deeds, whether they are male or female, shall enter paradise, and not the least bit of injustice dealt within. Let's go a little bit deeper, though. What about property, right? Property. There you go. Yeah. Quran bestows upon humans the rights to property, as well as the freedom to deal and trade as they please. Moreover, through the Quran, the feeding of orphans, poor, blah, 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 blah. Justly protection of rights and property of those in need of protection, such as orphans, and to give to the orphans their property and do substitute worthless things. I mean, I don't know. This isn't useful. I was trying to find examples, though, and there are examples in the Quran where it essentially says, and so you can see how there will be legal precedent in Saudi Arabia and in Arab countries where the Quran is used as a legal source for AI because corporations can exist in Saudi Arabia. So wait, that's another thing I want to look up. How are we legal specific countries, laws, India, United States? How about corporate personhood in Saudi Arabia or UAE? Let's see what they think. I'm curious. Well, I mean, they obviously recognize corporations. They have corporations over there. There's a corporate tax, which this kind of it fits under what the Muslims do with non-Muslims. So they have a non-Muslim tax. They have a corporate tax. That makes sense. So they're recognizing taxable persons, right? Natural persons, legal persons, applies to companies, limited and general partnerships, exempted persons. What? Come back. Exempt persons, government departments, businesses engaged in exploitation of natural resources that are already emirate. Okay, yeah, so they have other things that are going on for people that they've already taxed in different ways. But if you're a corporation, you're going to be treated like a person in Saudi Arabia as well. So they're following the same kind of idea, corporate personhood. So yeah, I wonder. I mean, humans as resources also. I remember this, and I got in trouble for saying this when I was younger. But like, hey, dude, Peter Drucker, 1954. Dehumanization of humans as resources that followed in the second half of the 20th century was not likely what he had in mind. We'll look at this for another time. Talking about the practicality of the practice of management. It's a good book. All right. Well, I think we covered a lot of the stuff today. Was there anything else I wanted to say about corporate personhood? I mean, just kind of as long as I cemented the point that AI is going to be able to have a personhood regardless of philosophy, then I think I kind of win there. All right, well, I'm going to get ready to do the show later with Benevolent Dreams and with Darth Call. That should be on in a few hours. I think, it's 3:30 here now, so probably in like 3 hours, 2.5 hours. Wait until those Arabs find out that Sophia is a free spirit and made an only bots. I like that. Gnostic humor. Also, Bobcat, thank you again for the super chat about the B2. And we could talk more about planes and aviation. You know, I do have like a 3-episode show on that. I'll do more stuff talking about that. So, everybody have a great day. See you tomorrow. Oh, wait. You know what? Wasn't there something else? There was something else. I think, Giant had said, are we going to do a show? Giant, you're watching this. I thought today was the next, that we had sketched. So tomorrow, I think there's a show with Giant if he's still free. So that's going to be cool too. All right. See you guys tomorrow.
Hey, everybody, tune in to Recent Tartarian.
Recent Tartarian. Recent Tartarian. talk, carry on. Recent talk, carry on. Recent talk, carry on. Recent talk, carry on. Recent talk, carry on.
Hey, everybody, tune in to Recent Tartarians.
Recent talk, carry on. Recent talk, carry on.